Unfortunately, it came in a loss, but Rob Dillingham just had what felt like his breakout game as he dropped 12 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, and a team high plus 26 in just 24 and a half minutes against the Houston Rockets. We're going to run through his game from start to finish chronologically, focusing on the good, focusing on what Dillingham brings to this team and how he could potentially solve a lot of their point guard issues that have continued to sprout up throughout this season so far. I'm Tyler Metcalf. Welcome to Film School. Let's dive in. So it was good to see Dillingham kind of start to get real minutes in the middle of the game, or not, not just end of quarter stuff. And right away, early on here, we just see the quick decision making and kind of floor recognition from him that leads to a Nasri dunk. Now, Nas has to do a lot here, but it's more so I love this, or really love this play from Dillingham, and especially this camera angle of it, because it shows off his quick decision making, him being kind of a step ahead, and recognizing the floor imbalance and the defensive rotation. So at the beginning, he's just going to kind of dance here with Dillon Brooks a little bit, show off that handle, super comfortable on ball. A couple sloppy turnovers in this game, but overall handled pressure really, really well at the point of attack. Swings it. Wolves go into a little DHO here with Randall and Ant. Ant's going to dance on Tari Eason. And the key here is that Dillon Brooks is playing really, really aggressive nail help defense here. So he's in the middle of the lane at the free throw line, and he's providing help for Eason, who doesn't really need it because he's an incredible defender in his own right. But that's the kind of gravity that Anthony Edwards attracts. Now, the point of that is that the Wolves now have a basically 3-on-2 advantage over here, especially with Nikhil kind of setting that back screen and mucking things up over here. So as Ant dances, crosses back over, this crossover, he gets Eason kind of going towards baseline, and once he crosses back over, Dillon Brooks has completely forgotten that Rob Dillingham even exists. So Dillingham's wide open, he's on his own, and that low step back gets Brooks to commit even more. So now he is on the opposite side of the lane, really giving the Wolves a huge, a 3-on-2 advantage on the weak side. Ant makes a simple play, kicks it to Dillingham, and Dillingham knows that there's going to be a scramble defender coming, rotating out hard, trying to close out. And before he even touches the ball here, look at his eyes. Ball's not quite in his hands yet. His eyes are there. He sees that Amen Thompson's staying low, that Fred VanVleet's closing out and gonna try and jump this passing lane. So he has to make that pass immediately, which he does. Skips it perfectly. Nas could let this fly, but he knows that his shooting gravity is going to attract a hard closeout, so he attacks baseline. Dillon Brooks is now trying to rotate down in time, but since he was so far out of position on Dillingham and really aggressively helping on Edwards, his first instinct is to recover back towards Dillingham instead of dropping down to Nikhil or towards the baseline. So by the time that he even starts this rotation down, Nas already has a full head of steam getting to the rim and gets a dunk out of it. This play didn't show up on the stat sheet for Dillingham, but I really like the process of what he's able to create here. It's simple, but really, really effective. So just early in transition, he's just going to push and just eat up whatever space the defense gives him. So as he kind of continues to attack, he's going against his old Kentucky teammate Reed Shepherd here, and he gets downhill. But since Rudy Gobert and Dante DiVincenzo are kind of trailing the play, they're a little behind. Jacques Landale gets sucked into the scoring gravity of Dillingham here. Shepherd isn't the most physical defender, so Landale has to kind of collapse down a little more and take away a potential drive from Dillingham by just simply pushing in the early offense here, Dillingham is already kind of collapsing the Rockets defense, and Gobert does a great job here of just kind of setting a quick little screen on Eason to free up the trailing DiVincenzo. Dillingham just plays simple here. Push in the early offense, attract the help defender, collapse the defense, and kick out to the open shooter. If you have two guys on you in the paint, that means someone's wide open on the perimeter. By the time Dillingham kicks it out, he now has all 5 defenders below the free throw line, kicks it out to DiVincenzo. That's a wide open look. Unfortunately, it doesn't fall. DiVincenzo's shooting struggles continue, but the process here from Dillingham and Gobert and DiVincenzo is exactly what you want to see, especially with a second unit or a young point guard. Nothing overly complicated here, but just an example of the usefulness of Dillingham as that spot-up shooter and outlet for guys, especially like Ant, who have so much scoring gravity. So just high pick and roll. Şengün is really playing at the level, trying to disrupt Ant, get in his face. They did this a lot to the vast majority of the Timberwolves ball handlers all evening. But since Brooks isn't switching this and Şengün is playing so high, that leaves a ton of space here for Gobert to roll into, which then forces the weak side rotation from Fred VanVleet. Not exactly a prolific rim protector, but good defender, smart hands. And it forces, he has to slide down because you can't just give up a wide open dunk, but that leaves Dillingham wide open on the wing. And again, just plays simple, makes a simple read, makes a right read. VanVleet's late to kick back out. By the time Dillingham rises into that shot, that's wide open for him, knocks it down, proves that he can be another either on-ball or off-ball scorer. The way that Dillingham immediately provided a sense of urgency and pace and energy in transition and the early offense for the Wolves was really, really important. So he's going to get beat on this give and go back cut right away. It's going to happen a lot. Got exposed in this game. We're not going to focus too much on the defense because that's not what Dillingham's selling point is. But anyways, as Green cuts, Nasri does a great job of kind of rotating down. We can see the rotations from Gobert and Nickeil Alexander-Walker from the weak side as well. But since Amen Thompson isn't a lights-out shooter, Reed is able to kind of collapse over into Green's cut a little better, times his swipe perfectly, pokes it away, and right into the hands of Dillingham. And just without hesitation, he's immediately off and running. And it's felt like a lot this season. No one's willing to make this type of pass in transition, where instead they'll just kind of push it on their own, try and get Nasri trailing on the right side. But Dillingham, just the decisiveness here and the confidence in his passing ability is really crucial, because without it, they may not get a easy transition score here, but he threads the needle, puts it exactly where it needs to be. I mean, Tari Eason is a large man, and he does an incredible job of deflecting passes and getting in passing lanes. And Dillingham threads the needle, puts it where only Anthony Edwards can get it without killing his momentum, continues to lead him to the rim. Ooh, that's an unfortunate pause. And does really good job of finishing through the contact, but all of it starts from Dillingham's willingness and confidence in making and threading that pass through the defenders. By this point, the confidence was flowing. Not that Rob Dillingham ever really lacks for confidence, but he was feeling himself. And if you're gonna lapse on defense, you may not want to do it against Dillingham. So from here, it's just going to be a little high pick and roll, and then the Timberwolves are gonna have Gobert set this cross screen and have Nasri kind of flare out to the opposite wing. They do this a lot, and with how aggressive the Rockets were playing in the pick and roll coverage, we can see that Eason's right at the level here. And if they blitz this, then Naz Reid kind of flaring back out here to the right side is a great kind of kickback option, especially with Gobert setting a cross screen to limit the Rockets' ability to recover. Instead, though, as Reid disengages from the screen, both Shepard and Eason go with Reid. There's no communication here. Dillingham is composed. He's patient. He takes what the defense gives him yet again, steps over, has just acres of space, knocks down that three. You can't give him that. He'll make you pay every time. Yet again, for what feels like the third year running, Rudy Gobert has kind of been an afterthought on offense and not fully leveraged when Mike Conley's not on the floor. And that's because no one else on this team can really throw lobs consistently. Maybe until now. So Timberwolves are just going to have, they're just running their action here. They're trying to free up Ant from Amen Thompson, who's just been a nightmare on defense, nightmare in a good way. So from here, just a little high pick and roll. And Dillon Brooks, again, playing really aggressive nail help, but he kind of has to sink down since the Rockets are playing at the level. They're blitzing the ball handlers all night long, so Brooks has to be over to try and disrupt the roll from Gobert. Ant knows this. He reads it properly, makes a skip pass over to Dillingham. And since Dillingham's a shooter, he's a scorer, and he's been shooting it really well, especially during the stretch, Brooks kind of has to close out a little more aggressively than we saw in some previous clips. Dillingham, little shot fake, attacks that high foot of Brooks, attacks against his momentum. Now he has Brooks backpedaling. Basically, he's out of the play at this point, and Dillingham has the entire lane to attack down into. Since, Ant is up above the break here, Julius Randle's in the corner. Neither Amen Thompson or Jabari Smith can really rotate over. It'd be asking a lot of them. It's a lot of ground to cover, and they'd probably be late anyways. So from this point right here, now that Dillon Brooks is stuck backpedaling, Dillingham is attacking the paint in a 1-on-2 situation with Şengün as the lone rim protector. He gets downhill. Şengün kind of steps up since Brooks is behind the play. He gets caught in no man's land. Dillingham throws a perfect lob at the last second. Very Mike Conley-esque. We've seen this lob from Conley a million times. Puts it exactly where Gobert can catch it. Makes life incredibly easy for him and leads to the easy dunk. The flash, the creativity, the awesome handle is always fun, but sometimes just keeping it simple and using your speed and quickness is enough. So this is just a foot speed battle, and Dillingham is just quicker than Van Vliet. What I love about this is how comfortable and confident Dillingham is going to his weak hand, or I should say offhand. So he attacks downhill to the left. Jabari is kind of non-existent on the rotation, kind of tricky. Tough shooting night for Jaden McDaniels, but this is probably something where Jabari should be helping down a little more into, but Dillingham's speed allows him to get there first, and he kind of takes off at an awkward distance, which throws off Şengün's timing here. So I think Şengün's anticipating another step, but Dillingham is taking off in the middle of the lane. Little unorthodox here. Extends with that left hand, and then finishes high off the glass. Really good touch. Super unorthodox, funky footwork on this takeoff that throws off the defender, and that's something that he can kind of continue to work on and utilize going forward. Great touch, finishing high off the glass, using his speed to beat any help defenders to the spot. It's simple, but incredibly effective. All right, I know I said we weren't going to talk about the defense, but I love this clip from him, and I think it's a really good example of basically how good, or the best case scenario for Dillingham's defense, where he's using his speed, he's really pesky, He's an irritant, and he's just kind of creating chaos, all without fouling. So there are issues within this clip as well, but as Van Vliet kind of attacks, a little swipe at the ball, good footwork, absorbs the contact, doesn't foul, gets right back into it. Van Vliet, uses his strength, dislodges Dillingham, and Dillingham's going to get exposed a ton on defense this year given his size. Whatever. If he can do stuff like this more than not, it should come out as, not a horrible loss on that end. But I love how he immediately gets right back into it, low in his stance, continues to swipe, doesn't foul, gets through the screen, again, absorbs the contact, is just a little gnat on Van Vliet, and funnels him into the larger defenders, and then switches off back on the perimeter player. Ball swings here, and, now he's out of the play. Now he's out of position. There's not a whole lot of, he's got to do better about communicating here or committing to either going with Thompson or going back to Van Vliet. Instead, he kind of gets caught in no man's land. But as he does so, he doesn't take himself out of the play. Instead, he blitzes Şengün on the spin back here, uses his quick hands, pokes the ball loose, and it eventually leads to a turnover. So it's not the most technically sound, it's not the most fundamentally sound or consistent or reliable defense, but if he can just kind of consistently play with this level of energy and be the defensive playmaker that we saw at Kentucky, it should probably be good enough. I also know that I said we weren't going to talk about too much of the bad, but this clip is mostly good. It also leads into the next one perfectly, but this is an issue that we saw a lot during preseason, where Dillingham struggled to finish around the rim. We saw one kind of crafty finish already, but this is something he needs to be better at and should improve on as he gets older. But again, right away, just simple blow-by drive on Van Vliet, fights through the hands, the physicality, and gets downhill, collapses the defense with ease. This time, his takeoff is a little more orthodox, and Şengün can time this up a little better. Ideally, Gobert or Randall get this dump off or a lob or something. They're a little closer to receive that. But Dillingham tries to go with the quick release and get to the glass before Şengün can get over. Unfortunately, he doesn't leave the ball high enough off the glass. He either needs to go real high off the glass here or just get there quicker and try and sneak it in before Şengün can rotate over. Unfortunately, he leaves it right in the sweet spot for a shot blocker, and Şengün's able to pin it off the glass. Really good rotation and defense by Şengün, but this is the type of kind of finishing craft that Dillingham will continue to grow into throughout his career. And an easy counter for that previous clip is having an awesome floater, which Dillingham does. So again, I know this is off of like a long rebound, but you can also envision it off of a skip pass or something that's forcing a long closeout. So the rebound and the way that Dillingham kind of gets this opportunity is a little fluky, but stylistically, just instead pretend that McDaniels is making this skip pass and it's drawing a long closeout. Again, similar to that clip earlier where Dillingham attacked Brooks's high foot, he does the same thing to Jabari Smith here, where Jabari Smith, Dillingham's been killing it. He's on fire. Jabari has to close out, high hands. He's up in his stance trying to contest a shot, and Dillingham just attacks against his momentum, attacks downhill, gets to the middle of the floor. A lot of bodies in his way right now, so instead of trying to force something dumb, he just pulls up, gets his footwork right, and the only defender rotating in front of him is Van Vliet. Not too difficult for him to shoot over, drops in a nice floater. But again, it's super composed and confident. And if you're not going to be a great at rim finisher, having an awesome floater and being able to pull defenders out into away from the restricted area and into the middle of the paint, closer to the free throw line, opens up a ton of offensive rebounding opportunities, and in other instances, opportunities to throw that backdoor lob to Gobert in the dunker spot or McDaniels cutting from the weak side. So the fact that Dillingham is already this kind of comfortable attacking a closeout and finishing with the floater is really encouraging for down the road. Without Dillingham, the Timberwolves probably get blown out tonight because they just didn't have it. That is until Dillingham came in and provided an awesome spark to their offense and their overall defensive energy as well. Now, he's going to get exposed all year on defense. There are going to be a lot of issues. Whatever. It doesn't matter because that's not who he should be viewed as. He's never going to be an all-NBA defender. But there's so much versatility and creativity and energy that he brings to an offense that it shouldn't matter. The way that he pushed the pace, collapsed the defense, created for himself, for others, scored in all three levels tonight was really composed and comfortable and confident. And that's something that the Timberwolves have lacked from their point guard position all year. Now, Mike Conley I'd be shocked if he's not the starter all season for this team. He's a veteran. He controls the game, and the offense just flows so much better when he's playing point guard. Unfortunately, he's older, and he can't be playing every minute and every game. And the minutes that they haven't had Conley even just playing, let alone in the game or suited up, they've kind of been a disaster. I get the experiment of trying Nickeil Alexander-Walker at point guard, of trying Dante DiVincenzo at point guard. Those guys are really good players in their own right, but they're not point guards. And game after game, we're consistently seeing that they're just not fit to play that type of role. They're not primary creators. They're really, really fantastic off-ball scorers, off-ball shooters, and second-side creators who can run an occasional pick and roll, attack a closeout, make a skip pass, cut from the weak side. But when they're consistently put into the point guard position and asked to initiate the offense, it takes away what they're best at. So how do you fix it? I think their rookie from Kentucky may have just showed them.